You know, stealth is obviously a really important thing for us in the Elder Scrolls. We focus on three main types of character, warrior, mage, and thief. And so there's a whole section of the game that's devoted to stealth, whether it's you know, the perks that you can pick and the skills that you use. Obviously there's both a Thieves Guild, and we just announced there's a Dark Brotherhood as well, so there's a lot of opportunity for stealthier quests and that kind of gameplay out of those factions. But it's really down to how you want to play the game. So if you want to go into a dungeon and, like, you know, go in with like dual wielding and like plowing everybody through, you can do that. You want to be stealthier and kind of sneak around, maybe try and get past people without killing. It's really more down to making sure the player has got a lot of options in terms of how they play and what kinds of things they want to do. So, you know, we have changed some of the stuff. We always look at the previous game and like what stuff we liked and what stuff we didn't like. I mean, so, you know, acrobatics not being around is really a decision, like how important was that? Like acrobatics versus one-handed acrobatics versus other skills. Like, it just didn't feel like we were really taking full advantage of that. So a lot of sort of what do we do to make up for things you could do with acrobatics, and Oblivion is down to level design and giving you other gameplay choices. Maybe not making the ability to do that skill specific, but just making it something that the character can do. We also wanted to get out of skills that you could increase just by like standing in place, like just jumping up and down. We tried to spend a little time working on the skill system so that you actually had to be using it in a way that was meaningful, as opposed to like, I'm going to jump everywhere. My acrobatic skill is just going to keep going up and going up. So we did a fair amount of balancing with that kind of stuff, so that the gameplay implications aren't negative. It's not like there's a lot of stuff you couldn't do that you could do before. It's just, where are those things needed? How do we design the levels to account for that? When we design AI in Skyrim, we don't design it by level. So we don't say, well, the AI needs to act like this for somebody who's level 30, but act like this for somebody who's level 10. The AI is just the AI. Like, what's the behaviors we want to see out of enemies, out of creatures? What do we want them to do? How do we want them to act? When do they cast magic? What kind of weapons do they use? How do they change what they do based on what the player is doing? So we spend a lot of time iterating on that and making the AI feel right, and then we sort of handle the leveling part in terms of like, what kinds of enemies are you seeing? What sorts of creatures are you facing, and how is their abilities different? Which isn't necessarily an AI thing as much as just like, this guy can do something that the other guy couldn't. Does that make sense? Like, so we try and make sure that the AI makes sense across the board for how we want things to act, and then we add or remove abilities based on like what kind of challenge that person or that creature is supposed to provide based on where you are in the game. So, you know, our quests are a mix in terms of linear versus non-linear. I guess in terms of how you can solve it, like, is, you know, the quest that there's really only one way to do versus quests that there's different ways you could do it. Like, there might be a stealth way to finish this quest. There might be, you know, a brute force way to finish it. It's really a mix, and it kind of depends on what it is. We try and be open to different styles of gameplay. Some of that just comes out of like, if you need somebody dead, well, how are you going to go about doing it? Like, are you know, your combat style. Some of it might be like, hey, there's multiple ways to do it. I think a good example might be, do you remember the Dark Brotherhood quest, the dinner party one, where you've got all these characters and like, you need them all dead, but there was a couple of different ways that you could go about it. So I think where we have the ability for the player to exercise some creativity in terms of the kinds of stuff that they want to do to finish that quest, we try and do it. But some stuff is a little bit sort of simpler and straightforward, like, hey, somebody kidnapped my kid and these bandits have them in this dungeon. Like, that's pretty straightforward, right? Go get the kid, take out whoever's got her, and bring the kid back. There's not going to be quite as many options in terms of how you do it. Linear versus non-linear, it's more down to the combat style. So alchemy has been, it's similar to the way that it worked in Oblivion, but we've added some new elements to it. So you find an ingredient, you won't know what any of the effects are. You can eat it to try and figure out what it does. But the main idea behind alchemy is this notion of like experimentation. So you take a couple of different ingredients and you put them together and you try and make a potion, and if two of those ingredients share a common ability, then you'll unlock them, and you'll have a successful potion. But you can pick three things that don't have anything to do with each other, and you'll fail. So you use the ingredients, it didn't work. So there is a bit of an experimentation in terms of adding stuff in, trying stuff out, as opposed to just unlocking what they all do and then only combining things that you already know the effects for. There's more of an experimentation and more of a failure system for alchemy in terms of trying stuff out, seeing if they work. That didn't work. Maybe I should try these instead. I know what these two things do. I wonder what happens if I add this other thing. Sometimes it's a successful potion, and sometimes it's a failure, and you got to try over. You really have to take with a massive grain of salt. Anytime you see anything written in another language that's then been translated back to English, like the language barrier between like explaining something to them in the first place and then them writing it and then translating back what they actually meant, stuff tends to get a bit lost or muddled. So the game basically works such that we're more interested in if you kill somebody and there are witnesses, like how do people feel about that, as well as is anybody able to step into the role. So we're more interested in there's a shopkeeper, he gives you a quest, you go off to do it. While you're off doing that, you get a quest from somebody else who says, I actually want that guy dead for X, Y, or Z reason. You go back and kill the shopkeeper, you then go finish the quest the shopkeeper gave you, and is there somebody to fill in the role of the shopkeeper to say, well, that guy's dead, but I'm running the store now, and you know, you can give the thing that he wanted to me, or I know that you killed him, and so as a result, I won't let you finish the quest, and I'm gonna, you know, attack you because I know you killed my brother. Or we're more interested in those kinds of notions as opposed to a guy walking on the road, you kill him, and do other people in the town like wonder. It's more being able to react to what the player does. To like, can things keep going? Can we continue the quest that you were given in another way, even though the quest giver is dead? That kind of stuff. You know, we get asked a lot about doing mods for the console. Obviously, it's something we're supporting for a PC with the creation kit, and you can do the same stuff you've been able to do in our previous games. The problem with the console is ultimately it's not our call. The console doesn't belong to us, and so the console manufacturers have very strict rules about what kind of stuff goes on their console, how that stuff gets put on there, what kind of changes it makes, testing it, and so forth. So we're really at a state where the console manufacturers right now today are not in a place where they're going to allow us to make a game like Skyrim and then let people change whatever they want and put it on their console. Because if you know anything about modding, you know, like, you can make mods that break your game. You can make mods that delete all the Nords in the world and there are no more Nords, and now all the quests are broken. So when you have the power that we do with our creation kit, you can't just say, yeah, you can put whatever you wanted on a console, and the Microsoft folks or on the PS3 folks, the Sony folks are going to be fine with it. So I will say this, we know that it works. We know that you can take the mods that work on a PC and make it work on the console, but we're not there yet collectively in terms of how do we allow people to create user-created content and put it on their console such that if it breaks something, it can be backed out, that the console manufacturers are sure that it's not somehow compromising security by letting people add all this stuff. All those questions, I think, still have to be resolved. So we do what we do, and if there's a day that that kind of support is feasible on a console, we will absolutely be ready to support it. We don't really do destructible terrain or buildings or stuff in that, like, you can take an axe and just hack down a building that was standing and now it's rubble, or you can't catch a building on fire and just burn it to the ground. Things will catch on fire for a period of time, but it's you know, it's a limited effect. So you saw even like when the dragon came and attacked in the demo and he breathed fire, that there was some other stuff that caught on fire around you, but like when you catch on fire, it goes away after a period of time. So when you're doing something like, hey, I want you to go sabotage that mill, you're performing a specific action. Like go jam something in the gears, and then you can go over to the gears and like there's an activate button that says, you know, do you want to break the mill? It's not like go grab something or cast a flame spell and like burn it to the ground. We don't. The game is too big to be able to take on those kind of dramatic changes. We do not do decapitation, dismemberment stuff. Well, I'm very happy that now I can answer the two questions that I get asked on Twitter all the time, which is there a Dark Brotherhood? Yes. And is there a collector's edition? Yes. Because those are the two things that everybody has been asking about and asking me specifically about forever. But you know, we have you know, I've got Gamescom coming up here in a week. We have all these cover stories that have come out and all the hands-on. So hopefully, folks will continue to get their questions answered as more and more previews come out. But I think the one thing folks need to appreciate is, we don't want to tell everybody everything because it kind of spoils the game. We want there to be an element of discovery, and I had no idea that was in there, and that's so cool. Have you seen that? You know, we don't want to lose that. And the other thing is, there's so much in the game that it's just impossible to talk about it all, even if we want to. There's literally nobody that knows everything about our game, even amongst the people that are working on it, because it's just too big. So, you know, there's so much content in there that we kind of try and pick and choose and focus on the stuff that we think is interesting and appealing, while still holding some stuff back.